Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, I'm going to be watching and analyzing the new trailer for patch 6.4, The Dark Throne. Normally I'd have this out a little bit faster, but it's been a busy day, and I figure better late than never. However, I've been awake for the past 17, almost 18 hours, so apologies if I trip over my words a little bit, and if my analysis isn't entirely on point. Not that we can ever tell absolutely everything from these trailers, but I love to catch all the little details that I can, and you in the comments always catch some details that I miss. So be sure, if you don't hear me say something, throw in the comment section of the video below. With that, we're going to give the trailer a watch through. My volume is about equal with it from testing. I'm a little bit louder, so I'll be providing some commentary and pointing out things a little bit in the first watch. But I want to give it just a quick go over. I watched it earlier, and I just want to refresh my memory a little bit. It's so bright. Stop.
I would bid you join me. Fight with me for the salvation of all our souls.
This Amarat theme has to be in Pandemonium. Has to be.
Feast upon this dragon and its ardent longing for home with it.
So good. I didn't expect an Amarat remix. It has to be Pandemonium.
They claim to be
one of the Pandemonium themes.
And we're
hearing Baron.
Search for means to end the Contra Memoria.
That's a flashback with Golbez. Looks like they went with his after years design or something closest to it. Octomammoth.
I dare say he would have been fine without me.
Good to have you back, Thancred. This is the variant dungeon or the Criterion, one of the two.
Containment seal. Then thou wouldst make use of
question mark. Probably something about opening the portal.
This is the promised land. The land of boundless ether.
I think that's just some like void scent. I don't think it's anyone important.
Oriange, commence your invocations.
I love that we're actually using the pit Zodiark left behind to travel to the void. Big fan of that.
Tis time to open our gate.
Blue Mage stuff right there. I gotta pause all the stuff right there. There's so many things happening with the Hildibrand section.
This is the moon of the 13th.
I've been waiting for this.
Pandemonium. I don't think we hear any voice lines. Unless it's this, the would-be heroes thing, but I don't think so. I don't think that's Pandemonium. I think that's just... I don't think there's any Pandemonium voice lines in this trailer.
Even now, I struggle with fear and
Euless?
uncertainty.
I don't remember who that other guy was. I gotta go pause.
Where do we go from here?
It's a wild plan to get to the 13th. That thing scares me.
You will go no further.
I have a crackpot theory about something that's happening there, based on some of the things we see and don't see later.
At last.
I also need to freeze frame that.
The moment is at hand.
The Shadow Dragon. I think that Shadow Dragon might be a part of one of his attack animations here. And not part of a cutscene. Like, I think that's an in-combat thing.
Who shattered the wheel and brought salvation to the world.
Yeah, there's Golbez. I don't mean the picture, I mean him speaking. Okay, so an undoubtedly high number of red herrings. The trailers always do this, but it is worth looking back on quite a few things. So first of all, this first section here, where Golbez is talking to somebody, he's talking about somebody joining him to, and I guess I'll play the exact line back.
Join me. Fight with me for the salvation of all our souls.
So he says our souls, and almost certainly he's just referring to the residents of the 13th. I mean, one of Golbez's primary plan is to be able to get to the source so that they can actually experience death. That's like his primary thing. Ironic, because Xande wanted to bring the void to the source in order to stop his death at all costs necessary. And Golbez, on the other side of the portal, was looking to actually die. So it's kind of just an interesting dynamic. But I think he's talking to Zero there. It makes the most sense that he would experience a resident of the Void standing against the Void or doing what Zero is doing, and kind of just want to recruit her. Now, the long-standing theory is that Zero is short for Zeromus, and that they will essentially become the villain, whether they're redeemed or not, who knows, but willing or unwilling, that they will become kind of the primary evil force. And I think by the end of this trailer, we kind of get an inkling of that. Now, as we move forward, there are a lot of lines that have little nods to different things. There's a lot of little frames that I feel like I need to stop at. The big thing is the residents of Baron. If you haven't played Final Fantasy IV, Baron was the starting city. It is where a couple of the protagonists are from. In fact, the majority of the endgame protagonists, 3 out of the 5 of them are actually from Baron. Cecil is a Dark Knight, gone Paladin, originally from Baron, but relieved of his station. Kane, leader of the Dragoons that are in Baron, and then you also have Rosa, who is, I don't remember what her role is within like the military or the function. She's the daughter of the king, if I'm remembering correctly, even though I just played it not too long ago. But essentially, it is kind of like the main conflict point of Final Fantasy IV. Baron gets taken over by Golbez and the 4 Fiends, primarily one of the Fiends, Cagnazzo, I don't remember how they pronounce it with the Italian, but yeah, he plays pretend being the king and uses it to influence and gather all the crystals. So Golbez being from Baron, not a surprise. Golbez, Cecil's brother in Final Fantasy IV, and the model they use for him that we've seen a little bit is somewhat similar. It's not entirely the same. It's definitely 14ified for I guess just based on what's available in the game. Almost reminds me of Acheron or Phlegathon. And we have this quick scene here where they get to the 13th. As Daya is locked away, you can see Vricha, finally found his sister, just going for the roar, probably trying to break her out by just like that revitalizing roar that they have. And then we get through a few scenes of the Ether Font, which looks great. There's a lot of really interesting wildlife here, some very odd-looking bosses, this weird zip line with the Ether. And then this is a scene, this looks to be a flashback scene similar to the ones we saw for the 4 Fiends, and that is indeed Golbez. You can see that he's slaying someone over there. They're being tossed aside. He has the power of darkness. And I'm assuming that Golbez still has minions from his days in Baron, and that so when we hear that there are minions from Baron who are looking for a way to slay the Contra Memoria, that after all this time, especially these people who he's come to the aid of, whether they're his direct allies or if they are someone else, and I think that's even Zero. I can't really get a good look from here. I'd need to look back at the other scene, the one from 6.3, but I think that's Zero in the distance. It's a little hard for me to tell. Maybe someone has a clearer distinction or comparison between the two. But yeah, so Golbez expecting him to have a lot of his minions from Baron, his primary domain, to have at least those things there. So, I do wonder if they're going to in any way find their way to the source or come to the source or something. I don't know. It looks like there's not going to be much in the way of the Void coming to the source. Very large Epkalus. I see some of the trolls over there on the side. This is, again, the 4-player dungeon. And as we scroll through, we have the big bear. We saw this in the preview. Now let's take a quick look at the gear if we can see any of it. We can see the samurai. Yeah, we can see the Warrior of Light going samurai mode for this one. You can see Thancred over there on the left. Nothing too fancy to say other than that. Just the particles everywhere. Now Octomammoth, another boss from Final Fantasy IV. One of the earlier ones, can be a big struggle. A very fast boss actually. And we can just see a few basic mechanics. There's a donut AoE, so it's probably a donut AoE, a point blank AoE. The tentacles probably drop AoEs. And you can see just, the samurai hitting, so a spread AoE at the very least. That's just a room-wide AoE. I mean, it's a dungeon boss. Don't expect a whole lot from this, but the Octomammoth model is very, very good looking, especially here in 3D. So I am a big fan of that. This looks to be after the Ether Font, especially from Thancred's comments here, that I almost think that we didn't even need him. You can see Urianger in the back. And then we have some footage here from Mount Rokkon. This is one of the dungeons. Now, my only wonder here is if this is Variant or Criterion. We've actually seen the first boss of Variant, and it should be the same first boss no matter which route you take. However, the last bosses all usually vary. I'd assume that this is just one of the Variant dungeon last bosses. I didn't really see anyone using a Variant action, but worthy enough to guess given that there are the 3 different paths. One of them takes you into the hot springs in the mountains. The other one takes you into something what looks to be akin to the Jade Stoa, and the other one takes you into this house that we have here. And then it's just them fighting through a little bit more. There's nothing crazy to say here. Now, this scene, I don't think is Zero actually being evil. I think with the Loprits, this is the Loprits said something to her that upset her. And this is kind of like a more comedic scene than it is a serious scene. I think that's why we get this great little Loprit meme right here, where the Loprits all line up. And then bam, bam, I've already made that into a meme format. So glad to see it. And then we go to the moon, and this is, of course, them trying to figure out how to use Zodiark's leftover ether and the portal, I guess the hole in the moon, as a means of going to the 13th moon, which we see that they use quite a few things. They've got, I'm so terrible with remembering her name. She's such a good character, too. She has one of the members of Thavnair, one of the alchemists, come over, and they're going to help with this as well. That's not really much a surprise. This is where Urian J says the containment seed. Does that mean? I'd assume that's just part of the plan of getting to the 13th. It's just some element of it. I don't really remember much of a containment seed, but it has been a while. This is just a quick scene of Shatter. They're revamping the map, so they just threw, a quick few seconds in there for it. So nothing too fancy here. We have more of Mount Rokkon. We can tell because Hancock is, walking through up in the front. We can see some of the other monsters. We can see some of the other paths and the enemies that are along them. Island Sanctuary update with the outdoor furnishings and some of the updated areas you can see. Looks very, very lively, especially with that building in the back. And so, wow, yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think people are going to love the Island Sanctuary update. Just looking at it, it looks so much more lively. Ocean fishing, please. I'm okay with having a new route. Please, please do not include a new point achievement. 3 million points is enough. That is fine. We don't need to go any further. Good. No doubt another path here for Mount Rokkon again. And this also looks like to be the 3rd path of Mount Rokkon. And this is the boss we get to see in a second. This is them opening the portal, it looks like, by using, again, they're activating the pillars one at a time. And there's the pit in the middle of the moon, the residual ether of Zodiark, which has been gradually returning to the planet. And we know that this has been having a major effect as well. I think there's a few fish, or they're part of the fishing quest, mentions how Zodiark's ambient ether is causing some things to happen to the ocean life as it returns to the planet. So an interesting way to decide to use it. Looks like, it opens a portal big enough for an entire dragon to fly through, which, makes total sense. And as for allies here, on top of the dragon, we can see that we have Ishtola, we have Estinian, and actually, I don't see Zero, interestingly enough, which may lead into the theory later, unless Zero is just kind of like peeking in front and they're really hard to see at the moment. Or maybe Zero's just in their mouth. Retris is carrying Zero in their mouth. This is just them again saying, it's time to open the portal. She even says that we're opening the portal. And then, just a new Blue Mage spell. Do we even get a good look at the new Blue Mage spell here? It looks like, I'm assuming this is part of the boss animation, but it looks like Drippy, a giant Drippy becomes a shield. I don't remember what quote-unquote shield ability Drippy had, but with all the effects, it's really hard to tell if that's what it's actually doing. Now, this is a section I wanted to see. So if you missed the previous Hildibrand quest, bit of a spoilers, but this is a teaser. This is kind of teasing another character that was introduced. Now, the other character that's introduced, when they do this, it's all like mathematical equations and stuff. When he does it, it's just a bunch of squiggles. So we can see a rocket, which is from the 6.15 quest, I believe. Looks like we have a chocobo there in the top left. I want to see what else is here. That was a snowflake, it looks like. I guess. Maybe that's what it was. We have another chocobo, a star. We have this in the foreground, which makes it really hard to see. Then we have a bunny as a samurai in the back. There's a butterfly, and then I can't tell the thing on the right before it swaps over to the new scene. There's all sorts of weird stuff there. This is almost certainly, again, one of the other final bosses in the routes for Mount Rokkon. It's the area that we saw from it before. And then we get here. Now, we do see Zero here is the only reason why I'm wondering where Zero was in that picture. I just think they were just obscured. Because, I mean, it doesn't really make sense for them to be here. Unless that other scene takes place after this, but I feel like that would be the scene of us going to the 13th moon, which is exactly where Y'shtola says we are. Y'shtola probably ecstatic to learn that she can use that this portal is and this technique is technically usable. She's been trying to find a way back to the first. Probably wants to be with Runar, or at least see him. Then we have Pandemonium here in the Itai scope in the Ethereal Sea, and starts powering up and freaking out. Now, interestingly enough, it starts reaching up with its chains out of the Itai scope and out of the source. Now, however, these chains, it's a little hard to tell because these chains look like they're actually falling, but it looks like Pandemonium is above it. So what's most likely is that this is a below angle shot, because you can see a light from Pandemonium very briefly right there. At least I believe it's from Pandemonium, and that these chains are actually falling. Like as Pandemonium falls apart, these are actually falling into the underworld, and you can see that right here as some sort of abomination starts growing out of it. And I can imagine that a giant tumor in the Ethereal Sea is probably not good. Yeah, see that light right there? I'm pretty sure that's the light we saw in the previous screenshot. So if those chains were going up, it would make sense that Pandemonium is trying to be pulled out of the Ethereal Sea. But then falling down also makes sense because you can actually see chains falling down as this mass just breaks out of everything. Now we have the Magus Cocytus right here, and we've already dissected a few of its mechanics from the letter from the producer live. It's going to be placing AoEs and changing the sizes of them that we actually see in this trailer, if I could get to a better shot. I don't know if the bracelets are going to be great tells on that, but another thing we get to see right here is that it punches the ground, it knocks everyone back, and it actually starts sending out these shockwaves gradually. Those look like Dominions from P8S Phase 2. That might be something similar, but it also looks like at times it's really hard to tell. It almost looks like there's two different kinds of them, but I think that's just the ground effects from the shaking kind of causing some confusion. We have more friendship between Euless and Zero, which has been honestly something I've really enjoyed. The bun scene from the previous one was great. We have Hildibrand here, who's looking a little too smug in the Itai scope. I think this is fully rejoined Hildibrand. It makes the most sense. So he actually should know us entirely by this point, which may be why he has a smile on his face, because he has the memories of himself when he was, you know, back in the old days, 12,000 years ago. And then he has his current experiences with us, the most recent ones in Shadowbringers and Endwalker. And so I think that this is a proper full memory, similar to what happened with Emmett and Hythlodaeus reunion style thing. And I'm really hoping that's what it is as well, because I kind of want Hildibrand to completely remember who we are. Now we have another scene here. This is in Pandemonium. This is outside of the gate. This is where we fought Erectonios back in P1S. And you can see we have Hildibrand, the Warrior of Light, and what's it called? Well, Erectoni is right there in the back. And then we have Hildibrand here, who's doing something. And interestingly enough, we have the half face cover. So the other half of his face should be the thing that's attached to Hephaestus, which he sealed away. And I don't know if this is him like post madness. And again, here's the thing. If this is taking place in the current day, this should be the fully reformed La Habrea, which would mean that, well, actually, again, we don't really know how it works when his ether was kind of like obliterated by Thornton's eye. So there's still a lot of questions around that we might actually get answers to, which is kind of exciting as well. If this is taking place in the past, this might be the aftermath of the things that we experienced in P8S, where again, he sealed away that half of himself with Hephaestus, but I sincerely doubt that that doesn't come to fruition. There was always the thought that one of the researcher that disappeared was either, you know, a La Habrea or an Erectoni, as we like to call him, some like reformed part of their soul. And that's another detail that we're going to have to definitely keep an eye on. But we have La Habrea here. We do get to see the boss do the different sized AoE. That symbol shrinks the ice. So it seems like there's an ice symbol and a fire symbol and whichever symbol pops up on the screen is the symbol that actually changes its size. Now, if we see this, it looks like it stays extended all the way to the wall, just closes in to make a smaller donut AoE. So likely you'll get both fire and ice AoEs, and you'll have to place them in such a way depending on which one shrinks or expands in a way that actually solves the mechanic adequately. I wouldn't be surprised if fire and ice mechanics need to be canceled out, similar to how it's done in P6 and other fights as well. Where, for example, let's say that you had both fire and ice, but ice was shrinking. But fire needs to make sure they're hit by ice. Now you have a situation where where the fires all need to make sure they're along the outside, and the people with nothing need to make sure they're on the inside. There's other ways that could play out, but I do think there will be some like counterbalancing of fire and ice here in some way. And you can see the donut AoE. We do also see a fire AoE in the letter from the producer live, which expands, which is another reason why we go that. Euless talked a little bit about his fear here. Just a quick comment. I don't remember who this is. So if this is somebody we know, please put it in the comment section. It's just been so long, I can't keep track of all the characters. So I just need help with that. That's no problem. This is the Stormblood duty, or the trusts, the duty support. That's what they're called. That's all this is. So this is just the Alamigo dungeon. We have this. This actually reminded me of Omega initially, but this is very likely not a red herring and is exactly as it seems. This is the top of the Tower of Zot, and it's being used to fire whatever ether Zot still has at the moon in order to provide adequate ether to open the portal for us to go to the 13th. We also have Magus Cocytus here again, or Cocytus, and on all fours and kind of just roaring and beastly, does a giant fire AoE. It's hard to tell if that's a room-wide fire AoE or if it's actually doing something else. It almost looks like it's waving from the left to the right. And you can even see the wind effects to it. So I wonder if that's like blowing fire from a specific direction. Maybe you have to like be frozen and block it, or maybe it's just a knockback. And he has now, because I don't think he's using arm's length right there, but those things are all possible. This we can't really tell. So it squishes the gunbreaker and we can see a tank buster tower. So I'm assuming that this is actually tank buster towers, and this hand coming down where the tank is was a tower before that landed, because then you can see the AoE disappear on the right hand side, and the hand, well, it actually doesn't disappear, it disappears right now and then lands in the same spot. So I think those are Sephiroth wham bam slams, but they happened one at a time, so odds are something else is happening here. Whatever it is, who actually knows, we'll just have to wait and find out. But that's all that I managed to gather from that abomination. Then we have Astinian landing a quick kill on that demon. Let me see if we can get any interesting freeze frames here. So looks like we have more demons showing up. It's really hard to see the other characters in the back with this particle effect going off, but it looks like he's just completely surrounded by demons. I can see a succubus. I can see, not the Minotaur, I forget what that specific one is called. And I can see a few other demons in the back. It just seems like he's surrounded. Yeah, the one that's over his shoulder, the one that it's similar to the one that's the last boss of like Siren Song C, but I don't remember what it is. And then we have this here, and I actually forgot the voice line that he says right here. Let me listen to it again.
You will go no further.
You will. Did he say you will no further or go no further?
You will go no further.
It sounds like go, but like it's go, but it sounds like no. And then this is a scene of what looks like Zero is trying to use their Contra Memoria powers to seal away some people. And then we have Golbez, who's just kind of amassing this dark ether. This is the hole where Zodiark was, just on the 13th moon, and you can see the kind of like the dark pulsing. Now, I am not 100% convinced that this is before the fight or after the fight. I think if this is before the fight, this is actually the ritual that Asdaya is a part of, and this is making them the Shadow Dragon, and then they come out of this. Or whatever's in the cube, which I think might even be Vritra or Asdaya, is coming out. Of course, the theory also is that maybe the cube has Zeramis locked away. I don't think so, because I think they're going to use it as part of the fight. But, I mean, any of those things are possible. You know, I'm not going to act like an authority on this in absolute. We get to see Golbez with the Shadow Dragon a bit. The AoE ice right there. Nothing too major. I'd assume you could slip and fall. We have the half room AoE that he uses. We saw this during the live letter as well. And then we can see that he has this attack with the Shadow Dragon. And interestingly enough, he creates a clone of himself And the clone does like, see, it does like the little cape, back step going that way. The like famous move that he's been doing in all the cutscenes where he like swoops his cape back and it goes to the right. And then it kind of just fades off into the distance. It does have a dark orb around it. And then another clone with a dark orb around it actually stands right there. Now, I guess what I need to see is, okay, they both have 2 dark orbs around them. I wanted to see if maybe they had different numbers of dark orbs to indicate like an order for an attack or something like that. Oh, that one does have 3. So, it's very possible that there's 3 clones or him and 2 clones, and they each have either 1, 2, or 3 dark orbs. And that determines the order of their attacks, but they're all almost certainly doing a different AoE, and they're setting up for it, so you'll need to move from position to position. We can see him channeling into Azdaia here. Now, interestingly enough, it almost looks like he's pulling the light ether out of Azdaia, because you can see Azdaia's corpse just kind of like hunched over, almost completely drained. It's lost all of its luster. At the very least, he's infusing this dragon, which again looks exactly like Azdaia, but without all the wings, with his ether. The same thing that he did for the 4 fiends when he transformed them. But whichever one he's doing is not 100% certain, but you can see that the dragon is all messed up. Vritra looks either damaged or restrained here is a big thing. And then they're worried about Azdaia. So he's probably like, sister. And then, you know, we all start charging in. And again, I only see us, or ourselves, I suppose, Y'shtola and Estinian, and again, Zero just completely missing. I can't help but wonder if Azdaia isn't actually the Shadow Dragon, but their ether is being used to make the Shadow Dragon, and Zero has somehow become the Shadow Dragon in all of this, and is taking a form that is reminiscent of the dragon's ether, especially because he does say to gorge upon the dragon's ether. It's exactly the same thing that he said to the 4 fiends, and I wonder if Zero's just kind of taken on that form, and is now, it just looks like them. Now, there are a couple of other things to look for here. It looks like there's just some spell effects, actually. It's kind of hard to see anything else. But we see, you know, the Azdaia-looking Shadow Dragon. Again, other than missing the wings, that is the same face. Those are the same horns. It's the same everything. It's much clearer to see in-game for me. It wraps around the sword, and then he does a big swing. And this is a cutscene in the middle of the fight. You can see everybody has the watching a cutscene marker, so this might also be an ATE. It's entirely possible, so keep that in mind. And then he swings and then says, what's the line that he says here? No. Go back a little further. Little further.
Face me.
Face me. And then the final line.
The hero who shattered the wheel and brought salvation to the world.
I wonder if he's almost talking about himself there. Shattered the wheel. That sounds like him trying to defy death. I think he's talking about us, but shattering the wheel is an interesting thing. Because the closest thing, I guess, that we could potentially fall to that is what we did on the first. And I wonder how aware of that he is, because there is a lot of kind of void shenanigans with stuff that happened over with Eden, but he'd only know about that if we did the side quest. So again, I'm just full of questions here. It's another one of those trailers where I'm just full of questions. There's a lot of things you can speculate, extrapolate. And it's one of those cases where it's just, we'll see who's right, we'll see who's wrong, and that's the fun leading up to the patch. It's a very exciting trailer. It's got some great music with the Final Fantasy IV theme and with the Amarot remix that we had that probably belongs on one of the later Pandemonium fights. And I hope everyone's as excited as I am, because, you know, things look pretty cool, at least from a story and discussion standpoint. So let me know what you thought in the comment section of the video below. Again, if you caught anything that I missed, please put it down there. And with that, that's going to be a wrap. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and I will see all of you in the next one. Until then, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.